What's going on with Bitcoin? Welcome to the Crypto Simulation. I'm the Gaussian Snick. I run a free Telegram channel, the Snake Pit, where I do daily market updates, chart analyses, and information about new altcoins. But today I'm going to explore Bitcoin. We're going to try to see if we can tell what is the most likely outcome from here and where price is going to go. It's been very difficult to analyze Bitcoin when it's been range bound like it has been for the past few months. A lot of people think that the bull market is over. I don't think so, but let's go through some different indicators and try to understand what's going on with this asset. So if we take a weekly view of Bitcoin and look at the logarithmic regression analysis, this is on a one week time frame. We have the median line right here. It's where Bitcoin spends the most time oscillating around. And we have gone 3 standard deviations from the mean to the top and to the bottom. We can see that Bitcoin has basically not done a whole lot compared to past bull cycles. We have been finding some resistance at the 0.5 standard deviation line. We encountered this in March, we went underneath it, and now it looks like we're getting rejected there again. So it does beg the question, do we need to come down a little bit lower and maybe tag the median line, or just kind of straddle that again, or maybe we don't have to get all the way down there. But if we did, that price target would be about 52K. I think that would shock the market quite a bit to get a drop like that, and we should probably see some pretty significant buying pressure if that happened. I do think that that is a likely outcome. I do. Just looking at kind of where we're lined up right now and the fact that we're putting in a lower high, I think it is certainly a possible and likely outcome that we have to come down potentially in the 50s. It doesn't have to be 50K. I mean, it could be right. It could be 53K, somewhere around there, and then maybe we get like a V-shaped recovery. There is some historical precedent for these kind of moves in post-halving years. So you can see, like here, we got up to the median line and then had a sharp rejection. I know that you could say that was due to COVID, but it did happen. In 2015, it was a pretty nice grind up. We did get above the median line, only to get rejected and come back down, and then go back up, come back down before we went on a roll. And in 2013, which is very similar to this cycle, we came down and we had to spend some time around the median line before we started to move higher. So I think we could see something like that play out. I think it's actually a pretty likely situation. It sure is taking a long time compared to past cycles, but that does appear to be the direction we were heading in. I know today we had a nice rally up to around 69.5K, but once again we got rejected and just coming right back down. So I would like to take a look at some other perspectives, but you can see here on the log regression that this is just kind of business as usual for a post-halving year. It's nothing really to be that concerned about. It did look like we were forming like a cup and a handle, and maybe we are still forming that handle. I don't think we're coming down here, let me be clear. I think the buck probably stops around the median line, and I think we should find some support there, even if we straddle it for a little bit. I think that will kind of form the basis for our next move higher. But that's just based off this chart. We should look at other things too. This is a new risk indicator that I really like using. It uses a lot of computer resources, so I'm going to try not to move it around too much. But you can see even here that before we get to these really top levels, it's not unusual for us to have some upward movement like we had in 2019. Although I just feel like we're kind of in a different place now. We don't need to drop nearly as much as we did in 2019 because we just exited the bull market and we were barely starting just exited the bear market, and it was too soon to have a run up to here. Maybe it's too soon to have a run up to here now too, and we kind of come down a little bit down in risk, So right now we're at a risk level of about 49 or 50, give or take. It is going to change dynamically as price moves around. Could we see a risk drop to like the 40 level or below? It's possible, okay? It's something we shouldn't rule out, and that would just be a great accumulation level. For perspective, the lowest we could absolutely go, and this would be bear market, okay? This would not be bull market anymore, would be about 30K. So just to give you perspective, that's zero risk. That is like the blue curve. So that in my opinion is not happening anytime soon, and by the time it does happen, this will probably be a higher value, closer to 40K. I don't think we're going to go down to 40K. I think that's a little bit too low. I think the lowest that I would probably see on a wick maybe would be somewhere around 30. Okay, so that is like a worst case scenario. But just for perspective, right now 100 risk is 162,000. This is really great news because it means if we have to take another year to get to like our all-time high for the cycle, and then we hit this top line as we have always done, then we could see it cycle top over $200,000, which would be incredible. And if Bitcoin gets all the way down to like 50K, I mean, that's like another 4x move, putting, you know, the total move from 15K, and it's like more than, you know, that's like, doing the mental math now, like a 12, 13x move, right? Something like that. Arithmetic is not my strong suit. So you can probably correct me in the comments on that. I'm a math guy, but mental arithmetic doesn't work out for me too well. Yeah, so I think a little drop here is it's a likely outcome, especially with this lower high. But I don't think we have to come down super low. I just don't see that really being the case, you know. Here we just kind of straddled the lower risk band for a while and had this explosive move up. I think we could see something like a muted version of what happened in 2019. Very muted and less dramatic, you know. So, I mean, we're at 48, 49 risk right now, you know, just under 50 risk, and 50 risk is at 68K. So this is, you know, we're really carving out a lot of volume support here, which is going to be good for future drops once we get up maybe above 100K or something like that. 60 risk is at 81.4, 70 is at 96.7. 80 risk is at 114. So another possibility is that we go to another intermediate top. Now that could happen too. I don't think it's the most likely outcome right now, but it could happen, and that could be like correspond to a 60 to 70 risk level, and then we cool off from there, or we just cool off now and continue to slowly bleed down. That is kind of my base case at the moment. So I've pulled up the 2-week chart for Bitcoin. I wanted to focus on a key indicator. I'm actually going to turn this one off. This is the 2-week price momentum oscillator, and it has been a really good indicator of market cycle tops, as well as whether they're significant tops like intermediate or they're more cycle ending tops. This has been a pretty reliable source of data. And I want to show you something. I've talked about this on my channel quite a bit, and it's important to mention this is why my base case is for a Bitcoin drop and not a pump right now. I know in my last video I was talking about Bitcoin pumping, but I overlooked this indicator, and I think it's prudent for me to come back to it. Every single time that price momentum has gotten above, let's just say the 80 level, over here is your scale, and tagged near the top, that has marked either a significant intermediate peak, okay, this is or a cycle ending peak. Like this was a cycle ending peak. This one here in April of 2013 was an intermediate peak. December 2013 was a cycle ending peak. December 17 cycle ending peak. I won't count that one. January 2021 wasn't really a peak, but it was getting close to one. And now we have price momentum really maxing out in February, which was followed by a peak in March, so it was close to a peak. Every single time that we've gotten up into this level, we have crossed this median line, every single time, and flipped it red. You can see that in 2011 it was quite dramatic. We came down all the way to negative 88 or so before running back up for the March 2013 intermediate, or April 2013 intermediate cycle top. We flipped it red again, and then we came back up later in the year for the cycle ending peak, and you can see that we printed red, green, and then more red. We came down again to about negative 89. This is the lowest that this momentum indicator has ever gone. And then we just staircased our way up, which is actually kind of unusual if you look at the past history of this. And we actually reached a pretty low peak compared to other ones. We dropped, flipped it red for quite a while, and then we had the 2019 run, flipped it green, flipped it red again, and we didn't even get that high, you know. And then we had our 2020-2021 run that got us around, you know, 88 or so, and we flipped this thing red. Okay, and then we came back up to our November 2021 peak, flipped it green very briefly before going into our bear market. And so we should be concerned at this point that we're going to see some red. You know, we had our July 2023 intermediate peak. We came down, flipped it red in September. Remember that August-September drop? And then we sharply came up all the way to the top. We have not come up all the way to the top, folks, since March of 2013. So it has been 11 years since we've tagged this top line. And we're forming what looks like somewhat of a head and shoulders pattern. So I expect a drop. Now, whether it's going to be a sharp drop or not, I don't know. It could be something like this here. It could be something less dramatic. You know, like it could be like this, right? So like if you look what happened in 2013, we had a drop in the double bottom, and you know we kind of had a bit of a lull for quite a while, and we could see something like that play out. Bitcoin may not do anything that interesting for another 4 to 6 months for all we know. Okay, we could see quite a lull, and this could be very depressing for the market as a whole if it happens. I'm not saying that it's going to happen or it has to happen, but you can see that the green is turning over here, and it looks like we're about to print some red, and we've always printed red every single time we've been above the 80 line. So I'm not going to fade years and years of history and say that this time is going to be different. I don't think it's going to be different. I think it's going to be the same. And this is on a 2-week scale, so we could expect the weakness in Bitcoin to last a little while. It may just be a slow bleed. It may be a sudden drop. I don't know, right? I don't know. But once you cross and turn this red, you tend to get sudden drops. It is what tends to happen. We've seen it happen here. We've seen it happen here. Here. I mean, here. When has it not happened? I would say even in 2013 it happened. Just it wasn't that dramatic compared to some other ones in terms of how far down this went. So I certainly think we are turning the tide here, and we are entering into a price momentum downtrend. I think that is what's going to happen. But we could do something like we did in 2013. It may take longer. It may be shorter. I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. But seeing this head and shoulders pattern that formed, it is making me think a sudden drop is in the cards and very likely to happen. And if it doesn't happen this month, it could happen in July. But it is just very likely to happen and lead to a period of market weakness. And we're already in a period of market boredom, but if you look at fear and greed, its sentiment, it's still been above 70. So we haven't really spent a lot of time at the lower levels. And, you know, you have to think what's going to kind of like motivate a really big pump with Bitcoin in the second half of the year. It's certainly not going to be Bitcoin going range bound and boring everybody to death, just kind of stuck in this range. And, you know, I said on my channel that this could be a distribution phase, and I stand by that. You know, if we pull up something like the weighted Bollinger Bands, you know, there is this median line that is starting to turn over, right? And this is on a 2-week time frame. So the median line might be like around 60K or so. We could just kind of make our way down to that, and we might even go under the median line for a little while, and that could correspond to those prices in the 50 to 60K range, where I think we could spend some time. It is possible. It is certainly possible. You know, look at this. This looks like a distribution phase. This looks like a distribution phase. And some people might say, well, this is an accumulation phase. I don't think so. I think it's a distribution phase, because every time we get up to the 70K range, people pull profits. But then there's also support down here. So it's just sideways movement. That reminds me a little bit of how 2021 was. And then what happened? We got a major drop. I think something like that could happen again. I think it's actually quite likely. If I'm wrong, so be it. But look at what happened here. We kept failing to get above, what was it, 62K, 63K, something like that. And then we just dropped hard into the 29-30 range before jumping back up again, put in double top, and then we had a bear market. I don't think we're about to head into a bear market. Let me be clear about that. I don't feel like this pump is it, but I think it is possible that we do head into an extended period of boredom and weakness. That could take us deep into the summer. It's possible. Look, I'm not going to rule it out. I know I've called for an altcoin season. I've been calling for it for a really long time. I said late spring, early summer. Sorry, I think I'm wrong. I think the altcoin season is going to be prolonged. You know, I'm going to pull up the Bitcoin season index to show you a little bit more, or altcoin season index to show you a little bit more of kind of what my thoughts are. So this is the altcoin season index. It's at 18, guys. It's at 18. We have just been in this massive downtrend with altcoins since we hit an altcoin. We had like a mini altcoin season. It hit about 84. Tried to come back up, got rejected. Tried again, got rejected. Tried again, got rejected. And we are now knee deep into Bitcoin season. I think we're going to spend some time here. You know, I don't think it's going to necessarily have to go on for 6 months. But if we look to the past, let's go to 2013. If we even, I don't know, we don't have data that going back that far. We didn't even have really much in the way of altcoins back then. Yeah, too bad, huh? Let's see. Well, there's really just not a lot of great data to go off of. If we go to the last cycle, you know, we did kind of like come up in 2020 for a little while, and then we fell deep into Bitcoin season from about October of 2020 to January 2021. So I think 3 months seems pretty reasonable of a time frame that we could spend, you know, in Bitcoin season. So that would pretty much be most of the summer. We could be down here longer. We could be down here until we get the first rate cut, for all we know. Don't have a lot of data to go off of, right? But the more time we spend down here, the better it's going to be for the altcoin season that comes. So I think if Bitcoin dumps, it's going to take us further into Bitcoin season. People are going to capitulate their altcoins. They're going to just go heavy into Bitcoin. And I think a lot of people are just going to give up and throw in the towel. You're already seeing that start to happen. If you've noticed, you know, even our Snake Pit Telegram kind of slowing down, and you notice your Discord group slowing down, project group slowing down. Social risk metrics are through the floor. It's just there's not a lot of excitement in the space right now, and you can see this is just one giant downtrend straight into Bitcoin season. And I think we're going to need to spend some time down here. 3 months, 4 months, I don't know how long. I have no way of knowing, but this is a pretty convincing downtrend, and I think, you know, we'll probably carve out a nice bottom in the coming months, and it could be pretty brutal in the market. We could see a pretty substantial drop by Bitcoin. I think that's quite likely to happen, and the V-shaped recovery that I've been calling for might be too optimistic. We might have to kind of carve out a bottom and just spend time at these lower levels. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, could we get a V-shaped recovery? We could. Could we spend a really long time down here and reset the cycle and allow us to have a really explosive 2025? Yeah, I think that's actually probably the more likely scenario at this point. Sadly, because we had such a strong bull run-up, maybe we need even more time to cool off than what we have right now. I mean, we might get these short-term pumps, but ultimately what we're looking for is a break of the all-time high of 73K. And, you know, a few videos ago I was arguing, well, maybe we break out now and go to 80 to 90K, but that might have been a little too optimistic, just because what is going to get us to break out like that? We have nothing really to push that kind of movement in the market. So more likely we dump and people kind of throw in the towel, and we kind of tread around the, you know, 10 level, 10 to 15 level with Bitcoin season. Thought it would be interesting if we looked at the 2-week price momentum oscillator on Bitcoin dominance. I don't think I've ever done this before, and I think you'll see some good news in here, right? So there's some encouraging signs. There's also a discouraging sign. So you'll see that we have been in a bull market with Bitcoin dominance for a really long time. I mean, all the way since like the end of 2022. So we're coming up on, you know, not quite 2 years, but definitely a really long time of Bitcoin dominance being bullish. You've seen the price momentum oscillator for Bitcoin dominance. It's come to historical topping levels in June of 2023. So we've actually been in a downtrend since then. But notice that we flipped red, and we've been red for a while. I think this is going to probably flip green again. If I had to guess, I think we're going to get another bit of green. And that's probably going to come on a Bitcoin dump. And I don't think that we're going to take out this high. I think this high will hold. But I think we'll print some green and then really roll over hard. And I think we'll see some pretty substantial red in this chart. And that'll be great for altcoins when that happens. Whether that happens 2 months from now, a month from now, or 4 months from now, 5 months, 6 months, I don't know. Again, I just can't know that for sure. But I don't think it's going to be super long. I think a few months at most. You know, I think this is probably going to flip a little bit green. I can't see us taking out this high. I can see us printing a lower high. I can definitely see that happening, or maybe even a double top on here potentially, because it just doesn't look like Bitcoin dominance has a whole lot of juice left in it. I mean, if we zoom in on this chart, this is the 2 week, so a chart I'm a little less familiar with, to be honest with you. Gaussian channel on the 2 week still looks really strong, but if we go into the 1 week, eventually the 1 week will catch up with the 2 week, hopefully. It is concave down right now. Now, could it go back to being concave up? Absolutely, it could happen. It didn't in the past. So, I mean, what I'm kind of thinking is that dominance probably is going to top out somewhere around 58 to 60%. It will probably be like it could be a blow off top, or it could just keep chugging along if we have kind of a slow bleed down and just spend some time at the lower levels of Bitcoin price. But I think, you know, it's just a matter of time before this rolls over in a big way and leads to a massive pump by altcoin. So, but yeah, we could definitely climb higher for a little while longer. Bitcoin dumps if it has a V-shaped recovery, which I would love to see that, right? And then Bitcoin goes on to make some new highs in maybe the late summer or early fall or later this year. Then I think we will see Bitcoin dominance achieve its cycle ending top and then start to drop out, allowing altcoins to run. That may be it for Bitcoin, right? So we may not see something like this play out where we drop, pump again, and then drop. It may be different this time. We might just kind of chug along here. Bitcoin puts in maybe its cycle ending high, or it could put another intermediate top. I don't know. We could do something like this. I'm not psychic. I can't predict the future, but we should be open-minded to the idea that Bitcoin's next major top, whenever it occurs, could be it, right? Or what we might get is we might get a triple top cycle where we get maybe a top around 100K, we chop around a little bit again, and then we have another top in 2025. So that could also happen. So that could give us a situation kind of like this one, or maybe we come up here, we come down, chop around, come back up again, only to come down again. So that's something else to consider. I think as far as your trading is concerned right now, what would make the most sense, go back to Bitcoin. Let me just type it in. So if we just go back to our Bitcoin chart, you know, to me, what makes the most sense from a risk management point of view, again, this is not financial advice, nothing in this video is financial advice, is, you know, probably like the least risky thing to do is to hold a substantial amount of Bitcoin in your portfolio, probably a majority of Bitcoin. And I'm not saying that this is what everybody should do. This is just probably what makes, you know, the most sense from a risk management point of view. And hold some stable coins, and maybe have some meme coin exposure, altcoin exposure, you know, somewhat of it, because the meme coins have been doing fantastic. But, you know, one thing I'll say is a counterpoint to my thesis about a drop, right? I've been very confused and I've had a hard time reading this. It does look like a distribution phase. We can't know that for certain. The Gaussian channel is green, concave up, and narrow. Seeing that, when you get a Gaussian channel like that, that's usually followed by a parabolic move, okay? It's not usually followed by weakness. So if we go back to like 2017, we can see that we were kind of range bound for a while here, and then we did kind of go up, we came down, and we started a, you know, really nice journey. So that has me kind of like scratching my head at a drop. While I think a drop is a likely situation, we could just see another parabolic move up too. So this is why I think being heavy Bitcoin is a very prudent strategy, because whether the price goes down or goes up, you're protected because dominance is going to go up or down either way. And the only way that you're kind of screwed, I think, is if altcoins just suddenly rally out of nowhere, which I don't see that happening. I just really don't. So I think that you could see, you could still see a pump out of Bitcoin. Okay, I'm not ruling it out. I have to think we're going to drop, because that's just what we've done every single time we've been in the situation we've been in before. Also, if you look at the RSI, I like using the Snabble RSI because it's a more exaggerated exponential moving average version. That looks bearish. There's just no way around it. Head and shoulders bearish. So I just have trouble seeing anything other than a drop right now, but I at least have to mention the counterpoint that just because that's what I see doesn't mean that's what's going to happen, because for all we know, we could put a lower high in here and go back up. I don't think we will, but we could. If you look at what's happened in the past, when you get to these top levels, you generally don't come back up here for a while. This was 2021. We didn't come back up till 2023. Here, this is 2019. We didn't really enter up here into a substantial way until a year later. Now 2017 was kind of an exception. We were just up here pretty much the entire time, and going back to prior cycles where we had more volatility, you know, the spacings were not as dramatic, although this one kind of was. You know, we were here in March 2013. It was a little while before we came up here in a substantial way, and we did have some pretty substantial drops. 2017, 16 was such a beautiful, just up and down, not very dramatic. You can see 2018, 2019, that was super dramatic, and so up and down, up and down. And then once we got up here in late 2020, I mean, it just went straight down into July, and then we kind of played around, barely getting up to the top, and we didn't start coming up top again until 2023 and this year. So could we come back up here again? Absolutely. This could be a lower high, or it could be the formation of a head and shoulders pattern that is going to just take us down to the depths. Okay, we could go back down here and tag this line before we reverse course. So I don't know what's going to happen, but that's just kind of like what I want to lay out for you. So really, you have to make up your own mind what you think is most likely. You know, I think bearishness is the most likely outcome. I'm basing that on data, not on what I want to be true, but on what the data tells me. So again, heavy Bitcoin, heavy stable coins, something like that, but some exposure to the altcoin and meme coin market, maybe a little bit of exposure to ETH does make sense, but not financial advice. Everybody's situation is different. Personally, I'm taking on a lot more risk and facing, of course, more downside potential because of it. But that's just what I've chosen to do. But if you're kind of somebody who's less risky, more risk averse, then yeah, I think heavy Bitcoin, heavy stable coins, and be ready at any time to pull the trigger and do some buys. I still think, I talked about this in my last video, I still think we're in an altcoin accumulation phase, but those of course can have some pretty nasty drops. So DCA in a dynamic way makes the most sense for altcoins. As far as Bitcoin goes, if you want to DCA some Bitcoin, you know, we're at a 49.50 risk level. If we get down to the 30 to 40 risk, I think you could have some good opportunities to maybe make a 4x from there if the cycle extends deep into 2025, which I think is actually becoming a more likely outcome. I'm kind of not feeling confident about the left translated cycle theory anymore. So yeah, that's about all I got. You know, sorry it's not super bullish. I'm just trying to follow what the data tells me. And you know, things can change at any time. Things can play out in ways I don't expect them to. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, I'm the Gaussian Snek. This is the crypto simulation, and I'd love to have you in my Telegram group, the Snake Pit. We do market updates every single day, chart analyses, and information about new projects. And I think everybody there gets a lot of value out of it. It's completely free, so feel free to sign up for that anytime. And I have a link in the video description below. Other than that, just remember, nothing in this video is financial advice. Nothing in here is my psychic powers. If I'm right, great. If I'm wrong, great. I'm just doing my best, all right? Just look at the data. I tell you what I see. And yeah, you can kind of choose what you want to do with it. All right, until next time, peace out. Bye.